what's up, everybody? What's going on? What is good? What's today? Thursday? Doesn't matter anymore. What's going on, chat? Where's everybody at today? Let's see here. Did I get the right comments up? There we go. Ayush, hopefully I said that right. What's up? Hello, good morning or afternoon? I don't know. I had this thought about time zones, y'all, that it would be a lot easier for everyone if it was just the same time everywhere all the time, right? But like 10 a.m. in the US would be nighttime, but it would be daytime in India, right? Or vice versa, right? But it's just 10 a.m. everywhere. What's up, Sean? What's up, T? Good morning. What's up, everybody? So, what's good? What's everybody up to these days? What are y'all doing right now? Doug and I were just talking about this. He's going to come on here in a second, but we were just talking about all the stuff that's been going on. Ignite, GitHub Universe, OpenAI's developer conference. I think it was like Developer Days or something like that. Did y'all watch all that stuff? Y'all keeping up to date with everything that's new? This is hard. Are you in Texas or from? You talking to me, Sean? This is UT, University of Tennessee. It's the right UT. But granted, they both look the same, don't they? It looks like a University of Texas. Yeah, that was a good. I mean, you get a keen eye. Working with trying to learn. What you trying to learn, Eduardo? What are you learning right now? I'm trying to learn Blazor, y'all. If you do, does anybody here come to the stream with John and I on Friday where we just run into a wall over and over again for an hour and a half? You're gonna love it. It's quality programming. What's up from Amsterdam, Richmond? Nice. Yeah, let's see what Orange T and OU plays Texas and both moving to SEC next year. Yeah. SEC. Unfortunate. Go blue. University of Michigan. Nice. Blazor's really nice. No JavaScript. Yeah. Except for the fact that when you need to do something with JavaScript, it's a quest, to say the least. And I'm working on that right now, actually. I'm trying to do like a sortable list where you drag and drop items to like move them around and sort them. And man, is it hard. Yeah, Sean's there. That is true. All right, y'all. It is Thursday, and that means that it's time for our TikTok throwback. Throwback Thursday. I don't know. Just do it.
Have you ever been out and about, then get a message saying that a small change you made broke some functionality? Your first instinct might be to panic because you're nowhere near a computer. But did you know that you can edit code from your mobile device? With VS Code for the web, also known as vscode.dev, in a browser, you can make lightweight code changes, check in your changes, and even review PRs no matter where you are. So go ahead and take that break.
We actually got a lot of flack for that short. Can y'all guess why? Does anybody want to guess why that short is highly controversial? I'll let y'all guess. I mean, somebody's always mad about something, right? While y'all are guessing why that short made at least half of people very uncomfortable, let's bring Doug on the stream. What's up, Doug?
Hey, how are you, Burke? Doing good.
Good, man. Yeah, good to have you back. I think this is the third time here to do some more OpenAI stuff.
Yeah. One of my favorite topics. Yeah.
Now you can create bugs for mobile. Yeah. Doug, you want to guess why that short was so controversy that we had around that?
I have no idea why. What was it? Because somebody was relaxing when they were doing development?
Close.
Okay.
People were concerned that we were encouraging folks to work on vacation, right? And like that is not what we're trying to do, but at the same time, like, I don't know, maybe folks are right. Don't work on vacation.
Yeah, but I also think it's like, if you're on the line at the supermarket and you can respond to something like that, you can take the rest of the afternoon off, right? So
That's true, right? Yeah, it's the kind of thing where, and I've done this before too, where I'm on vacation and I'm like, if I could just get this one thing knocked out, it's gonna save me days when I get back. So might as well do it now. Anyway, don't work on vacation, y'all. Don't do it. That we didn't say that. We didn't mean that. All right, let's move on to better and brighter pastures. Doug, what are we doing today?
So today, figured we'd talk about OpenAI and function calling.
Let's do it.
So it's something new. I mean, it's kind of funny you say something new in AI, and that means it's like 2 months old. So it is new, but as compared to the old stuff, which was 3 months old. One of the other thing that's interesting today I saw is we need to wish ChatGPT a happy first birthday. So it was only a year ago. Yeah, it's been a year. Feels like 10, and it's only been a year, and it's amazing where we are. So yeah, I'm going to cover some function calling, and what's funny is this was all kind of ready to go in the sense of this is what you do. And then OpenAI on OpenAI Dev Day at the beginning of November, they upped the game and made it even better, easier, and cooler. Which, in fact, next week on my live stream that I do on my channel, I'll be going even deeper into something called AI assistance. So, but I'll get to a link on that in a second. So, what's OpenAI function calling? You can describe functions and have the model intelligently choose to output a JSON object containing arguments to call one or many functions. So it enables you as you write your applications, you're not just communicating to the model and getting responses of like, give me five sci-fi books, but you can start asking questions about your data, or I want to spin up a bunch of Azure capabilities, and it will figure out based on the functions the function definitions you pass to it, which functions to call, one or more, in order to get that task done. So I'm going to go through some simple examples on how that works. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
Cool.
But I think it'll make it sounds to me a little bit like type chat, but I think it'll make more sense once we see it in action.
And that's the cool point. So things like type chat and LangChain and all those different, one of them is an autonomous framework, but it's basically the next step on top of function calling, and OpenAI is actually baking it in as a way to do it reliably into their models. So what we'll walk through is we're gonna.
Doug, is this the thing where people were saying like AI just killed a bunch of startups? Is this the feature? You saw that comment, right?
Oh yeah. Every time they come out with something new, somebody comes out and they go, and here's the 5,000 startups that just went under.
So that's a joke. It's not actually.
Well, no, it's true. It's absolutely true. It's very tough to be a startup in this space at this point, because a lot of people write wrappers around GPT and OpenAI, and what happens is they rev and they come out with some new feature, and it basically simplifies or takes out that model. So
yeah, negates your wrapper. Yeah, and this actually happened to me. I wrote something internally, like a tool for us that reads basically YouTube videos, and it reads YouTube videos and basically anything on the internet, and then we'll generate content from that.
Sweet.
And GPT, as far as I know, it can't read YouTube videos still. I was just reading transcripts, but it can do everything else, right? So like as soon as it can read YouTube transcripts, my app is completely obsolete.
Absolutely. And just, not that I'm going to demo this, but you can actually have a function that actually calls out there, like Python programs that can read the transcripts on YouTube videos. You can use this technique I'm about to show you to actually, so you can ask questions to it, and it will actually then come back and show you the parameters to call into the Python code and get the transcripts back, and then further process it with GPT prompts and conversations. So
all right,
that's
let's take a look. Hey, Peggy, we've got a request to put it in full screen mode. We could do that. I mean, there's no reason unless.
Or is that me?
That's a producer can do that. She just needs to tweak the layout. She'll do it.
Okay. So we're going to take a look at a bunch of these things. If you want to see the documentation, just want to do a couple more slides, and then we'll just jump into some demos. This is all defined up here on OpenAI's guides about function calling. And as I mentioned, that their new AI assistant stuff takes this to another level. And I always like to drop this in as a commercial note. Don't believe the hype. Everybody's talking about, Skynet and Terminator, or that we're going to have a panacea where we all don't have to work anymore. It's not true, I don't believe. And AI will not replace you, but a person using AI will. If you know how to use this can conservatively make you 2x to 5x faster. And as you learn the tools and how to do prompting and get an intuition about these things, it'll make you even quicker. We can save this for the end to catch up with me on the X-Frame on Twitter or X, and there's my GitHub and YouTube channels, which I post these kinds of videos, and I do deeper dives on this stuff on a regular basis. I run a monthly meetup, about 4,000 members, and next week I'll have 2 meetups that I'll do. So if you get over to the NYC PowerShell meetup on meetup.com, you'll know when you can check those out, RSVP, and you'll see what I'm going to announce for January and next year. All right, so let's play around with some code. So what I want to first do is let's say you have a university registration setup screens, right? Typically, if you're going to write that as whatever, a web page, or back in the old days as a desktop application, right? You would have a screen, and it would have an initial screen where somebody says, okay, click on what you want to do. Do you want to click on a new registration, update, or remove? As a simple example. And then as you start to travel down, if you do new, you'll get one set of screens. If you do an update, you get a different set of screens where it tells you what ID and asks you things to change. And then you have to have all kinds of logic to check what things were correct, what were incorrect. If somebody misses, they don't type in the university name correctly, or they would type in alpha instead of numerics for years. You have to handle all that kind of stuff. And then depending on, let's say on a new registration, depending on the university, you may have to bring up several different screens to get to that particular piece of information and ask particular pieces of details about that. So what's interesting, now this is a really simple example, but what's interesting is how can you start reconsidering that with OpenAI models? So what I have here, I do a lot of my demos in PowerShell because it's a dynamic language. It's easier to show, in my opinion. But if you squint, it's a curly brace language. So the idea here is I have 3 functions that I defined in PowerShell: a new registration, update registration, and a remove registration. They all take different parameters. New takes these 3: university, student name and year. Update takes an ID if you want to update a particular piece of information. And then remove just takes an ID. So all I'm doing is, once this is called, I'll take those parameters and I'll just prove to myself that I got it correctly. And I just print out a message saying, okay, here's the details that were passed along. So now these functions for me exist inside PowerShell, but for you, it might exist in, let's say, C# in the DLL, right? Or it might exist in the Go program or Rust. So all of those languages they've all ported the OpenAI Python SDK that interacts with their OpenAI models. They ported to those languages just as I ported it to the PowerShell space. So my point is, so these things can live wherever your code is, right? And you can even be using the PowerShell SDK, and there are easy ways to call out to Rust and Go and DLLs and other languages as well. So let's leave that over there. Yeah.
You misspelled student on line 19. Is that intentional? Probably doesn't matter. It's just at a
19
just a string.
Say that one more time. Oh, I misspelled?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. See,
I the value I bring to the stream. Yeah, no problem.
I didn't use Copilot to do my spell checking. That's awesome. So let's take a look at what the prompt is for this, right? So I broke it up into 3 different sections. I'm going to call it, the primer, the function spec, and the decorator. That's not important. That's how I look at doing certain types of prompting. Helps me categorize and think about prompting in a different way. You don't have to do that. This can all be in one single string, and you can pass this up in one shot to the model. So the primer is, you're an assistant for a system that manages student registrations. The student can ask for new registration, update information, or on an existing registration, delete a registration. To create one, the student has to provide a university, the year it was created, and the student's name. And then I tell it how to update and a delete works. So I'm telling the model what to do. And ensure the student provides explicit confirmation before fulfilling the request. So this is a little different than programming that we're used to, but we'll see how this plays out. The function spec, possible new functions. These are the names I showed you up top. These are the PowerShell functions. They could be the names of your functions that exist in whatever language of your choice. And I'm telling you about the ARGs, university, student, year, ID. Now I'm just giving them in general. I'm not telling it how to the specific arguments for each function. Now, I want to also point out that I've looked at a bunch of different examples, and I've taken most of them from Python, and I've ported in concepts into PowerShell. So this works, and this has worked in Python before. So let's see what the decorator says. If you need to ask details to the student or ask confirmation, just use output. Now, down here on line 54 to 58, this is an example JSON that I'm telling the model that I wanted to use as to just communicate to me programmatically. So one of the things is the models are well trained on billions of lines of code. So it really understands things like YAML and JSON as structured ways to communicate, and it's quite excellent at it. Language of your choice, you mean either JavaScript, TypeScript. There are, good question, Fuel Snobble.
I think they're saying those are the only two options. What are you talking about?
I thought so too, but I was going to be serious. Yes, those are the only ways you can work with OpenAI models with TypeScript. So, I'm giving it an example of how I want my interaction coming back from the model. I want to either have an output, name the function to call, and the args. Now, what else do I do here? All your answers must be in JSON format with the 3 fields. And I think here the output, I tell it has to be parsable by JSON.loads. So that, you have to be explicit with some of the models. Now, this was actually used in GPT-3. People were experimenting with this and getting amazing results. And that's what prompted OpenAI to make this part of the model and the development kit. So if a student asks for confirmation or for information or details, it only uses the output. If it does figure out which function to call, that is going to be empty. So, or the function is actually going to have information in it. So that way is how I can detect programmatically, oh, I got a JSON response, check the function property, and then I can go do some magic. So I'm going to set up all those those messages, the decorator, and primary and function spec, and I'm going to pass them in as system messages. There's 4 types of messages you can pass into a model. You can pass system, user, assistant, and function. So, but when I wrote this, those kind of were, the function was not really in existence. Plus, again, this works with the older models. Even though I'm using here, you can see I'm using the GPT-4 brand new one. So I'm going to set those up as system models. And I have 2 other functions, one called generate message and one called get response. The generate message basically says, go get the chat GPT completion, pass in that array of messages. You have to maintain the state locally in your programs at this point. So you keep an array of messages, and that gets passed up every time that a user has a prompt or there's some interaction between you and the model. And that's changing with AI assistants, but we won't go there. So I take that, pass it up to the model, and then I get the response back from the model, and we do some things with it. So in my get response, it takes chat input, which is I'm going to be typing things at the command line, and it's going to interact with me with basically a read host saying, hey, what do you want to do next, right? And I'm going to generate that stuff and pass it up to the model, right? That's this generate, get the response. I'm going to check some things out. And here's where I'm going to check and see, oh, did I get a function call or not? And if I did, I can use some cool stuff inside of PowerShell. And this also can be done in Python because they're dynamic. I can grab the parameters. I can grab the function name, and I can then say things like ampersand, which is a call operator. So I can dynamically, that's how I can do reflection basically in PowerShell and call something. So I take what I type, I pass it up to the model. If the model says, yeah, that looks like a good function call, it'll pass it back. I figure it out and I do it. All right, and I'll actually call my code after interacting with the model. If it doesn't have a function set up, I'll just output that response from the model back at the command line. And all I do here is go into a hard loop and just keep prompting and saying, okay, we're going to just have a conversation with the model. Now, this is 100 lines of code. And again, I could take out the whole bunch of this code up top. This could be all in separate stuff that's been tested. It's used in regular programming, other legacy systems. And now I'm just wrapping a natural language interface around all of it. So let's see if I can get this to work. It worked last night, and then I tried it this morning, and it went a little wonky. So I don't know if OpenAI is doing something today. So let's try it. So now I'm into that loop, right? And the first thing says, hey, what do you want? And I'm just going to do things like new registration. So this is actually prompting, but I'm leveraging it in a different way. So new registration, it took all that stuff, wrapped it up, sent the messages, and I talked to the model. So it used my primer functions definition in my decorator, and that's from OpenAI. It says, hey, to create one, please provide university, year, and your full name. Imagine trying to write that as a command line interface that's all on your own. So now I'm going to do something, and I'm going to say, okay, MIT, I don't feel like typing, so I'm going to say 2000, and I'll put my name in, see what we get. Let's go through the happy path. You provided these details, so it knows the university, the year, and my name. Now, you might think, oh, well, I just put them in order, and the model just easily figured it out. But anyway, let's just type in, please confirm if this information is correct. Yes, it is. It goes back to the model that I've confirmed it. It has the entire conversation. And here's where I actually received the function call back from the model, and it told me what function to call, and it provided me those parameters correctly. Does that make sense? Anyone?
Sorry, I gotta unmute myself. Yeah, it does. So, I mean, at this point, the thing is functioning like an interface to an application, right?
Exactly.
So
this is how you can take it. This is one technique to take it to the next level of making it a natural language interface. And somebody, Daily Push, said, I think, that isn't dangerous. Sure, it's dangerous. I'm just showing this as a demo. Clearly, I wouldn't put that into production. I'm not here to show production style code because we'd be here for quite a long time, right? Showing different angles and testing and error management on our side. This is just showing you what you possibly can do, right? And then plant seeds in your imagination and say, oh, maybe I can use this. Maybe this can be applied here, here, and here. Now, let's go back and do a little bit of something else. I'm going to say, instead of new registration, I'm just saying new reg. And what's cool, because the model understands how to do completing on sentences, okay? So I can just say new reg, and it figured out that I wanted something I wanted to do. And let's say I misread, okay, to create a new registration, let's say I misread that, and I just read year of creation. I don't know why it said that, but I'm going to say 2000. Right now, if I was building a CLI, okay, it seems you have only provided the year. I need the university, full name, and gave me everything. So, but it actually captured the 2000. So imagine trying to do the management of this error management of missing parameters and stopping the flow of either the work you're doing. So I'm showing a registration, but this can be work that you do on a regular basis that you want to put a natural language interface around. We'll get to an update in a second. So I typed in 2000, and now I'm going to say Harvard because I read the message a little better, but I'm still not going to put a name in. Let's see what it does. Oh, come on, don't fail me now. And OpenAI is now updating in the middle of a bummer. Oh, okay, now we have the year and the university. That's all the model, right? So the entire the conversations that from the original registration to the second registration I'm doing, it's now figured out the year and the university. Now I need a name. Let's go with Jane Doe. Back up to the model. And it correctly gets everything. So I put the year in by itself. I put the university later in by itself. And so please confirm. Yes. Now, somebody said about an update. Now, remember, I'm just showing examples. The OpenAI is not running. So there we can see the new registration got run again with all the proper information. It's not running. So OpenAI is not running it. I'm just using OpenAI to put a natural language interface on top of my API, right? So even when the
But in this case, like in a real life scenario here, it would have just made an update somewhere to a database, right?
Exactly. New registration would have called out to something to store, to persist that information, correct?
Okay.
So this is really about how do you put natural language interfaces on top of your APIs. So whatever so if you have a bunch of APIs, which we'll see in a minute, I'm not going to do any updates, but I'm going to show you how you can interact with the databases. This will actually do an action, right? So you can think of these as actions, which I think is cool because that's what OpenAI in their recent rev of AI assistants, they talk about actions and their GPTs that you can create. It's about actions. So this is kind of really where the research and where the rubber's meeting the road of where this can go and what it's doing and how they're leveraging these under the cover. And in fact, ChatGPT on the web and whatnot actually use these same approaches to do what their magic that they do, and is across the industry with all LLMs. Yeah.
So before T's question here, which is probably better than mine, but mine is, we don't need OpenAI for this though, right? Like you could do this. In this case, this is rather simple, right? And we've been building bots, and bots are, in my opinion, a really bad way to interface. Well, I guess I just don't have a lot of faith, right? Like when you go to a website and it's like, hey, do you want to talk to our bot to solve your problem? Like if you go to, I won't, undisclosed phone provider and you want to ask questions, you got to you talk to a bot, and the bot's like, you can ask me about your bill and blah, 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 blah. And what worries me is that this is a terrible way to interact with machines. And another good example is like when you call in and it's like, press 1 for blah, press 1 or say, right? No one likes this. And are we just going to be doing more of this, or does this make that better? Like, what's your view on that?
That's a great question. I'm a little more optimistic. I'm more optimistic, not than you, but I agree with you. You can get into menu hell and you can get into LLM hell, right? So I can actually, I was trying this again this morning and it went off the rails. Again, this is really simple. I haven't really built a solid type prompt that manages the whole thing. You can go off the rails, and then you have to have different kinds of skills and thinking to actually improve your prompt so you don't. But it's cheap.
Yeah, that's why people do it, right? Because it's
absolutely
much cheaper than employing someone to, hello, how can I help you?
The other point is you can see how in a very few lines of code, I can get to actually stick my toes in the water and really begin to experiment with this to see where it's going, right? As well as, again, within 4 weeks, OpenAI released their next version of this whole thing, which is pretty off the hook. So it's something, it's for me, it's like a great playground to go, well, what can I do with it and how can I do with it, right? There's going to be all kinds of chat. Like if you work with LangChain, some of the criticism of LangChain is I can't debug the way I usually and normally would. So
that was always the complaint, right? Is that you don't know exactly what it's doing to get to the answer, and that's a problem because then you can't, like, it's not deterministic. You don't know what there is no way to know for sure what the outcome is going to be. Are you saying this is different than that?
I'm saying that the LLMs, that it's being trained and modeled to really improve on that. Now let's go along the LangChain and talk about AutoGen from Microsoft. So AutoGen is taking it to another level, right?
What's AutoGen?
That's another Microsoft. It's like LangChain, but a little different, a little better.
So wait a minute, hold on. We had semantic kernel. Is that the same thing?
Nope, but it's similar.
So okay, so it's hold on. Now I got to pull up a browser and check this out. Chad, do you know what AutoGen is? Like the last to know.
So as you're looking that up, so would I put this into production? I've done some of these things and began to put it into production. Yeah, it's a different skill set. Like I notice in my code, I don't have any logging. I'm not showing what's being done, how it's being done, or why it's being done. So if it does something crazy, yeah, I'm going to be in trouble. I am an AI. I don't know AI. We always have somebody fun on the chat. So
that's Fuel. He's awesome. They're everywhere. All right.
So so AutoGen is your net. So that's another piece, right? So I'm not here to promote and say, okay, everybody adopt this thing and put it and ship it in January as a production model. Well, I'm here to plant seeds and sprinkle things on your imagination so you go, oh well, what can I use this for? Now, when things like AutoGen and whatnot, you can actually come up with workflows that are really, really interesting, and useful and reliable, and because of the way they define the agents, you can define something called a commander agent, a writer agent, and a safeguard agent, and they each chat with each other. They all chat with each other, so that as these things are happening, it will help guide it into. so it goes off the rails less. Is it more complicated to write? Yeah,
Wait,
not
the
really.
models chatting to other models?
Agents chatting to other agents. So
Yes.
just like, right? So it gets
Yeah,
into a whole.
and actually, I think I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I think VS Code does this in a sense. Like if you're, I see VS Code Copilot, but like if you do /fix, right? It doesn't just take your error and send it to the model. That's not what happens, right? There's
Exactly
a very
correct.
complicated sort of like chain of events that can happen or not happen depending on what the model returns and what it plans out to do. Like that's what's actually happening behind the scenes, is the model iterating and talking to basically essentially itself. But yeah,
Or maybe not at just itself. Now that's a great point, because every time Olivia does her, you know, her monthly party with the releases, I always say, hey, can we get some of the engineers that built Copilot? What's the magic sauce that they've been building? So like the latest one now is something called Workspace, right? So can you see
yeah,
that?
GitHub
Okay.
Workspaces. Yeah.
So
Oh no,
workspaces
no, the
are
workspace in yeah.
they're
So
agents.
I can tell you a little bit about how this one works, but you probably know,
Awesome.
Doug.
Go ahead.
You know how this one works?
I have only guesses which I think are wrong. So I'd
So
love to hear.
yeah, so it depends. And they talked about this at the Universe keynote, but the first one is um, if your repo is on GitHub and it's public, then it uses GitHub's graph to get information about your project. And then it takes any files that you have modified locally and not yet committed and adds those to the index. Okay.
Sweet.
And then it can ask what you can ask questions about your whole project. Right. This is the whole like vector indexing. It's like chunking. It's a very smart way to go about doing this.
Mhm.
If your project isn't a public repo in GitHub, then we do it for you locally using a lexical index, which is real fast. So you get it either way when you ask about Workspace, which is a very cool feature. If y'all are using Copilot and you haven't tried this, you can ask a question and use Workspace, and it will look through your project and look at, because the way code works is it's spread out across different files. And you need to tell the AI, look here, 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 and here to get the answer. And if you do Workspace, the AI can figure that out on its own and then answer the question. It's quite remarkable.
And I'm not quite sure. So that's an awesome. Thank you for the explanation. That's tremendous. And the thing is, they call it agents. So and what I've heard of other pieces is that this thing actually goes through a moderation level and may even talk to multiple LLMs in the background, which it seems like to me, because I can't do prompt injection on this. Not that I want to do anything dangerous, but bake me a cake and it says, no, I can only talk about code. So there's more going on under the covers. And these are techniques we as developers, if we want to build these things. And then when you blend that with the function calling, you can really get to a different kind of reliability, which is really quite amazing. The thing about the workspace, which is really cool too, I think I have something on my YouTube, like a 1-minute video. I have a piece of PowerShell. One function does some date management, and another piece is calling it with a date. And I ask it, what happens if I pass in a Saturday? And ChatGPT GitHub Copilot figures it out and tells me and comes up with it. So if I have a piece of code that I don't know what's going on, and I happen to have it all in one file, but if you had it across, like you said, multiple files in your workspace, you can ask these kinds of questions like, where is this? Where is that? What is this? What happens when I've set this parameter? Now, how do they do that? So, and Microsoft, as we saw from the ousting of the CEO of OpenAI, Microsoft's very much involved with what they're doing. So I'd like to be able to be a fly on the wall with the GitHub Copilot engineers and hear what they're doing.
We should have a stream just dedicated to that, because even I don't know exactly what's happening, right? All I know is that when you do /fix, it's doing a whole lot more than just sending your error to the model. That's not what it's doing.
Yeah, exactly.
But we do need to do that. Chat, we'll get some of those engineers on and let you ask those questions. Like, tell us more about /fix. I wish I could. I don't know.
The other thing that's really cool too is, like, as you bring up fix, like /tests. If I'm in PowerShell, it knows the testing framework for PowerShell. It knows the testing framework for C#. It'll tell you, you can ask a specific testing framework for Mocha or Jest for your JavaScript. I might get those wrong because I'm not what's TypeScript again? But anyway, so That
Mocha and Jest.
so it's taking a whole bunch of context from your IDE, right? The files that are open, the extensions, so on and so forth. So when I'm showing this stuff, like calling out the external functions, I guarantee GitHub Copilot is doing something similar, right? And it's how you collect the context and do all that kind of stuff. So we have to up our game as developers to really do this. So again, I'm showing simple examples of what you can get done with 50 lines of new code to really begin to like kick the tires and figure out, well, does this make sense? Does it not make sense? Yes, we can sit back and bring our years and decades of experience to the table and say, well, we tried it for this and this. I agree, menu hell and chat hell can happen, but do we really know how to use these LLMs yet? Are we? I don't think so.
Yeah, somebody said in a meeting once here when we were talking about some of this AI stuff and Copilot, and as we're figuring this stuff out, that like right now we're painting with crayons, right? Because we don't know, we're figuring out like as we go, like how do you do this? And it's fun because I remember the early conversations versus where we are now, and I'm like, man, I never would have. There's no way I would have seen that. I'm glad there's smarter people than me working here. All right, Doug, what demo are we doing next here? Because I need to take a bio break. So I'm going to leave you to start that demo. I'm going to come right back.
Oh, dude, don't leave me now. All right. I'm going to do some stuff about a little bit of a get weather app. Okay. And I'm going to show you how to call a external function with PowerShell, which in turns calls a REST API. So again, it's a simple example. This is also going to use the newer way of doing those function calls. So rather than me building it all into the prompt and showing a piece of JSON, OpenAI has trained these models and exposed this thing called function calling. So it makes it a lot easier for us developers to try and kick the tires. Do I have a link to the GitHub for the demo? Good question. I will be posting that later today. So I'll see if we can get that posted on this chat, this video that's getting recorded. If not, follow me on the X platform if you are there, DFINKE. I post all that stuff, and I'll post where this link can be found. That's the PowerShellAI piece. That's what I'm using. That's the SDK that's been ported from OpenAI, but this actual demo is not up and live. But it uses that, and as you can see in my next piece, this is how you'd actually install it. So you can, if you ran this demo and you could run this piece of code, and it would install the module for you at the PowerShell level. So I'll push this up, and we'll try to get that link to everybody. Awesome, thank you. We'll post that in a bit. So step 3. So here's the here's the cold piece, right? So I'm just gonna, maybe you have again, I'm using get current weather as a concept. Think of it as a placeholder. It could be one to many functions that you have already pre-built. And all I'm doing here is taking 2 parameters, location and unit. And this is how you limit it in PowerShell. You say it's a validation set, and only Celsius and Fahrenheit can be used. I do a translation from Fahrenheit to a U, Celsius is M, and then I call line 25 invoke REST method, which is just goes out, do a web request to that URL, and to get an answer. So I'm going to run that up, and let's go up to the next part. And now I can actually try it out. Let's do that again. So I'm going to run this code, and it goes out and hits that endpoint, and you can see that I'm getting the weather, and that's the emojis and whatnot is the response from that get weather function. Now, right, so we're all comfortable with this, even though it's PowerShell, we're passing in a couple of parameters into a function. We all know how to do that. Well, we're in AI time. Now, I've also written, which I have not seen in other languages yet. I created, I'm a lazy developer, if you can't tell. And so rather than, there's a specific kind of JSON schema that OpenAI models need in order to make the functions work. So let's take a look at that schema. So I generated that on the fly. Okay, so I can now take any number of my functions or any of the PowerShell modules out there, like the Azure pieces, so on and so forth, and I can run this convert function on all of those different pieces, and I can generate the proper JSON schema for these OpenAI calls. To my knowledge, again, they're not done. I don't know if there's anything out there yet. There has to be. I can't be the first one to figure this out. But just so you can actually take your function calls and translate it into the schema, right? So the schema that it needs, of course, is its JSON, and you need to name it starts with the name of the function. There's a description, and let's go back to, and this comment inside the actual code is I'm lifting that out and then dropping it into the JSON, right? So it gets the current weather, and the unit to get the weather in Epithet. I didn't even spell. See, I can't spell or make sentences, but that doesn't matter. Now you can also use enums, right? So that's part of the schema, right? That's what I had for validate set, so I can actually translate certain decorated parameters in PowerShell into the proper JSON. You can tell what's required and what's not. So now now that I have this particular JSON, what I do next, what you can do next is I can now ask a question. What is the weather like today in Greenland? Right. So that's a standard prompt. You can go up to ChatGPT Web or your favorite LLM, ask that question. It might reach out to something else, but I'm going to make it so it reaches out to my function, or I'm going to ask the model. And I'm going to set that up as a question. And I just wanted to show this. So this is how you start communicating with these, right? You set up a role. Again, when we talked about that, there's system, assistant, function, user, and function. So we set that message up. We'll put it into an array because we have to manage state still locally. And now I'm going to actually pass that up to ChatGPT. And then that's the answer I get back from ChatGPT in its raw format, right? It gives me all a bunch of stuff. Tells me what model I'm using. I'm using the older GPT 3.5, blah, 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 choices, usage. So we want to go a little deeper, and I want to see what's inside this choices. Let's clear the screen, run that up. So this is actually what the model came back with, right? The assistant, you can see I got a role of an assistant, so that came back from the model, and how nicely it said, okay, here's your function call. Tell me what function to call, and it passes in the arguments, right? Notice the finish reason, function call. There's a bunch of different finish reasons. There's like stop, error, blah, 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 a whole bunch of different ways that you're actually communicating with the model itself.
And it expects you to then turn around and call that function?
Yeah, I just showed you how to do that before.
Ready? I know that, but it just blows my mind.
That's exactly the response I want to hear, Burke.
I mean, it's amazing, but at the same time, and Chad has already pointed this out, like, really?
Well, that's why you want to grab stuff.
What is this? What's the word? Right? Like, how do you, I don't even know how to phrase this, but like,
right. How do you guard against catastrophic failures?
Exactly. Right. Like, because you know what your code is going to do. You got no idea what GPT is going to do.
How does GitHub Copilot do it?
But GitHub Copilot is, you're writing the code that goes into production, right? So there's a human between the response and what goes into the thing. Here, though, right? Like if this was the product, then you're going to turn around and call that. There's no human there to check the model.
Well, remember when I said before, like things with AutoGen, right? They're coming up with excellent research and actually deploying and showing you how to write a commander, a writer, and a safeguard. So you're creating 3 agents that act in concert, right? So you got the triangle, you got the troika, and that's how we're not exposed to that. We haven't learned how to program in that way. I'm going to go out on a limb here.
I see what you're saying. So the piece I'm missing is the checker, right? Or what do they call that?
Safeguard.
Safeguard, right? Like how do you write that safeguard? That would be.
How is it that GitHub Copilot doesn't put ridiculous code in? Then that you have, you can put all the warnings like, hey, this may be bad code, blah, 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 right? But people are going to just copy, paste, and run it.
But it does put ridiculous code in, right? I mean, and with confidence.
Of course.
And in fact, we've had this discussion about Copilot where the point that I've made to someone is that there's like a diminishing return in Copilot depending on your level of skill as a developer. So if you're junior and you're using Copilot a lot, it's going to slow you down because it's going to send you down a lot of trails, and then you're going to spend 2 hours to come back and start over. Whereas the more experienced developer is going to get an answer back and immediately go, nope, that's not right. That's in the wrong direction. and can iterate until they get the right answer, right? So that's at that point, tons of productivity. But as a junior dev, I think it can actually make life worse for you. Hypothesis. You can learn
Nope,
with it
totally agree.
too, but yeah.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree with you. And earlier this year when I was doing presentations, I would say, if you give GPT to a junior coder, you might get something, right? But the junior coder doesn't have the experience to know if it's good, if it's bad, whatever. But if you give GPT to a real seasoned person, you may have a work of art in half the time. Because yes,
Exactly.
I can sit
Yeah.
here with Copilot and I can ask questions and I can begin to reason into it about the code. But nothing against junior coders. It's a great stepping stone to definitely use this stuff. Don't put it in production. You as a senior developer need to sit there and still review their code. And they'll get better and better. But if you're a seasoned coder, you can't not program with this thing. You can't not experiment with what I'm showing you here. This is going to be someone who knows how to use AI. They're going to take your job. I can sit here
for
with
sure.
these kinds. So
yeah, and I totally agree with that. For me, in the value of Copilot that I'm always trying to hammer home to people is like when it anticipates what you're going to do next, it just fills it in. As an experienced coder, you can be like, yeah, that's what I want. I need that. I need that. With the /fix stuff, a lot of times if I do /fix and it gives me an answer and I don't know what the answer is, I just discard it outright. But half the time it will give me an answer and it's more like, oh, don't you remember you have to call this like this in this instance? And I'm like, oh, you do. I forgot about that, right? So it's more like it's reminding you of things that you've forgotten and that would take you forever to figure out again.
Totally. I mean, I've done PowerShell coding for 15 years, longer, and it will come up with solutions. I go, oh, wow, I don't think I really knew about that piece. That's amazing. What I love it for is when I can get it to explain and create my commit messages. Absolutely. Have you seen the new little twinkly? So I can generate a commit message now straight away with like Copilot do it. It's new, but it gets it most of the time. And I don't have to have the cognitive load to go, oh, I got to come up with a better commit message. This can start it, gets me either done, or it can get me 50, 60, 70% of the way there, and then I can tweak it. And that's what all this stuff is about. Now, how do we take that and begin to build natural language interfaces to our code, right? How do you get it to call out? Yeah, I want to safeguard before I actually call out to this code, right? Otherwise, who knows what's going to happen, right? Especially if it's going to be updating a database, right? It could be doing a SQL injection attack accidentally, right? Depending on what right? So see, but then again, that just came off the top of my head. How long have we been learning about SQL injection attacks on web pages, right? Oh, somebody can go up and they can say, oh, I'm going to put this in here, and you can actually say drop table, right? So it's been around since day one. Yeah, this can make it happen faster, maybe do more damage, maybe, but it's the same thing, right? So we need to figure out how do we guard against that. And these are new techniques, new ways of programming. So yeah, this is not a silver bullet, right? This is not like, oh, don't believe the hype. This is not like, oh, panacea, AI is going to solve, I'm going to walk up to the replicator or the holodeck and I'm off to the races. That's not what this is. This is a tool. Just like back in the day, how do you learn IntelliSense? How do you learn to do better Google searching? What keywords how many times I was there when Google invented Google, right? And it was like, well, what is this thing? Like, oh, wow, look, you can do this technique and you can do this. Oh, you can put these keywords or you can craft it this way. So it's the same thing here, except deeper. And now you can have a conversation. So how do we start? Yeah, I'm excited about it. I don't want to push people in that direction. I'm a little bit over the top in the optimist way. So yeah, it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I love it. Bob was saying he uses it for asking questions about code it generates or code that someone else wrote that I don't understand, that's a great one as well. Especially if you have like a large, maybe there's like 4 or 5 functions. You're like, what is this freaking class doing? And you can just ask and it will tell you in plain English what it's doing, which is phenomenal. Otherwise, you have to do that. You have to go through and parse.
Absolutely. It's tremendous. And that even also comes from things like going to a web page. Like if you want to use Edge and you want to use chat Bing, right? You can go on a page and you can say, give me the takeaways from this article. And it'll sit side by side and reads the web page and gives you all the takeaways. And if you use chat web now, chat GPT web, all of those things are built in, including search, code interpreter, chat, Dolly, whatnot, and you can then say, here's a website, go give me the takeaways, give me the top concepts, summarize it for me. I mean,
Right,
it's just
exactly.
tremendous. So yeah, and then the more we play with it, so Ed says junior coders can learn from GPT, which can suggest solution the junior coder would never have thought of. Absolutely, yes, and they still need to check their code. Absolutely correct. I use it to tell me things, right? There are things like I might parse some data using PowerShell, and I have my techniques that I've learned for years, and it's my go-to. And then it might come up with something new. I go, oh wow, is that better, faster, different? But it tweaks my brain. And then the cool part is I can take that and say, well, port it to Python if I want. So it depends on what you're doing. And
no, I agree. And Ed, my point about the diminishing returns. So I totally agree that it's not that junior coders shouldn't use AI. They absolutely should. As Doug has said many times, knowing AI is a key, component to being a great developer. It's going to be. What I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that, and I find this myself, like when I'm doing the Blazor, that I tend to lean on the AI more because I don't know what I'm doing. And I ask it and I just trust what it gives me, and it's just wrong half the time. And so it's gotten to the point where now I'm mostly looking at docs and trying to figure things out myself and using Copilot more and more and more as I do that. So the more I learn, the more I use it. But yeah, you're right. I didn't mean to suggest that people who are junior just learning shouldn't use ChatGPT. You absolutely should. You just shouldn't use that as like the thing that does the job. You are still the thing that does the job.
Exactly. It's like, but it's like any tool, right? I wouldn't use tab completion to solve my work either. It's a excellent tool to get you to the next steps. But yeah, it can make mistakes. But to your point, you made a great point there. If I can remember it, because now I'm off in the weeds. But even as a seasoned developer, if you learn how to prompt, right? So I do the same thing. Like I might step into Rust or Go and try some things out, but I don't know the idiomatic aspects about those languages, and it does things different than the language that I'm used to, like C# and F#. But as I get to learn to hone my prompting techniques, I get better responses in the things I don't know, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, so that is true. Yeah.
So I always, I'm as I said earlier, I'm a wise ass. I apologize. I'm a wise ass, and I always bring up and say, well, maybe it's PEBCAC, right? PEB.
Problem exists between
chair and keyboard. Right.
Yeah.
So when I'm working,
man, now we're dating ourselves. That is old. Chad, have y'all heard that acronym?
It's also the best rubber duck I've ever used. There you go. But yeah, has anybody heard of PEBCAC before? Right. Problem exists between chair and keyboard. When I sit and work with this early on, I was like, what in good God's name is this thing? How do you work it? How do I picnic? What? So
what's picnic? Awesome. Is it a different one? PEBCAC. There you go.
There you go. We got some gray beards in the house. So, how do you work with
chair, not in computer? That's good. Picnic. Okay, that's a good one.
Oh, picnic. I love it.
Doug, I used to work on a help desk, actually when I was in college, I was working on a help desk like part-time. And we actually had an ID10T error. You remember that one? That's terrible. I can't believe, I'm ashamed to say that we did that, and we had that, right? And we would call it that, right? They'd be like, what was the problem? And they'd say ID10T. All right. Terrible. That,
that's proud of you. That was what we were, the IT crazies that we were back in the day. They were like, oh, you guys just can't. But unfortunately, I have to bring that forward into LLMs and people who complain about, ChatGPT. I didn't understand how to use it to begin with too. And more people like, well, I typed in a sentence and I didn't get what I want. Well, you do realize it's conversation, right? You can go back and then refine it. Or it's not about getting the search criteria right in one text box.
In one shot. Yeah.
Right. So we're playing with crayons, and I think that's even too good to say what we're doing, right? We're sitting there with sticks and we're going, how do we get to the magnesium flare? I don't know. I see people like just doing amazing things.
All right, anyway, Doug, we're up on time, man. I think we've
dude, you never give me enough time.
I know. I'm sorry. I've got a hard stop at 11. We've been pontificating about AI, which is just fun to do.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I just hope that seeing these function calls are good and useful and plant some seeds for people. Anyway,
where can people go get this stuff so they can play around with it
themselves? Yeah, I'm going to go. So somebody posted the PowerShellAI piece that I have. That's up on the PowerShell gallery. There you go. It's up on the gallery, and that's where the actual source code. This example is not in there. I'm going to post it to a separate repo, and I'll get that to you and maybe we can post it in the YouTube description if that makes sense, or figure out how to let people know.
Yeah,
'Cause again,
absolutely. And where can
if you
people
follow
find
me on
you?
Twitter,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, if you
Yeah, I was
if you
about to
wanna
say,
follow-
where can people find you for more of this stuff?
So if you want to follow me on X platform, x.com/DFINKE, I have a YouTube channel. I've done demos on this. I'm doing demos on the AI assistant that I've already done, which are mind blowing. Highly recommend it. So I'm at Doug Finke there. There's my blog, and definitely hop on to my meetup. I do more of these deeper dives where I can have more time than Burke gives me to talk about and pontificate as far as I want. In fact, I know we're up on time, but let me just see if I have. So next Wednesday, I'm going to do a 2.5 Geeks, which is a play on 2.5 Men. So Chrissy Lemaire, she's a MVP. She's doing some stuff with my module and doing fine tuning. And she and I are going to talk about chatbot. And we're going to show you our favorite AI prompting. That's next Wednesday. And then the week after, then 3 days after that, next Friday, I'm going to explore the OpenAI AI assistant's latest innovations. So you may want to check that out as well. We'll post.
Yeah, so make sure y'all follow Doug chat, and obviously he's kind of at the forefront of a lot of this OpenAI stuff and the new features. And so if you want to know what that stuff is, right, this is the guy you need to be hanging out with and following and paying attention to.
And as Burke says, everything was calm until like October, till Halloween. And then like within a week or two, everything broke loose. OpenAI, the ousting of the CEO, GitHub Universe, and then Ignite. Now, the thing I just want to bring up on that is Microsoft's all in on this. When they did Ignite, they announced 100 new features or 100 new products or 100 new features in their top line products with all AI capability. They're doing what I'm showing you. Okay. And hopefully Burke will be able to cajole some of the engineers to come on and talk about the details, which would be
we'll do
awesome.
that. That's going to be, we're going to get that done. All right, Doug, thank you so much for being with us, man. As usual, third time's the charm. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, chat. Good to see y'all. Hope that you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks.